Hi, I'm Parneet Jaggi, and in this video, we're going to be analyzing very briefly the interesting story, The Open Window, written by H.H.Munro, Saki. Now, when we look at the genre the story belongs to, we see that it can be read as a combination of two genres that usually do not overlap, the comedy of manners and the ghost story. And if we try to understand what the comedy of manners is, this was a kind of a theatrical form that used satire and dramatic irony to comment on the prevailing class system or to critique the cultural mores and conventions or to make fun of various social archetypes. Now, in British literature, the comedy of manners reached its peak, its zenith with the Restoration era comedies of Wycherley and William Congreve and even Oliver Goldsmith in 18th century. Now, when we talk about it in detail, we see the comedy of manners was still popular during Saki's time. So that is why he kind of picked it up in his stories and he incorporates several hallmarks of the genre. Dramatic irony, for example, over the top characters, plot twists, and satirical edge in this story, The Open Window. With the exception of Vera, we notice his characters are one dimensional and they seem very poised, chiefly, mainly, to allow the story's comic mechanism to function in a proper way. Now, the second genre Saki draws on in this story is the ghost story. The central section of the story features all the suspense, the veiled, the covered, the hidden tragedy, and the supernatural aura of an archetypal ghost story, at least for readers who are not familiar with the story's ending, which ends with a twist. So, it can be said that Open Window is ultimately the satire of a ghost story, or perhaps a homage to this genre of the ghost story rather than a true picture of a ghost story. So we find that the story's broader structure has an effect of the ghost tale when finally in the end we see those three men whom Vera calls dead. They are coming back through the window inside the house, and Frampton is chilled to the bones and he runs away. Now, another important component of this style is the satire. Much of the satire of the story, The Open Window, is directed at the English upper classes at the turn of the 20th century during the late Victorian and the Edwardian eras. Now, although we notice that writer Saki does not specify the setting of the story here, but it looks like that he has taken the setting of a rural place of England among the characters of the upper class. Now, because the Sappletons have a stately home fitted with the eponymous French windows and their hunting of snipe, all these are indications of their relative affluence, means they are well off, they have a wide popularity, they are a rich family, affluent family. And Frampton's current treatment, a nerve cure, which involves retiring to a countryside or a rural place to restore his psychological health, is also suggestive that he also belongs to an upper class background. Now, when we have a look at his characterization, we notice that Saki's story portrays the characters as somewhat ridiculous. Specifically, when we look at Frampton, he has a kind of a personality where he lacks social ease, he has a tedious conversational manner, and his immediate fright at the hunter's return is ridiculous, and he is almost like without grace. His gracelessness and gullibility are a part of his portrait, and even the fear of dogs. The story that Vera cooks about him is also interesting when she says that he might have the fear of dogs. Now, if we look at the political and historical context of the story, uh, we notice that these characters make sense because during the Victorian era, Great Britain became one of the most powerful empires in history. However, by the turn of the 20th century, there were concerns that Great Britain had become decadent and had begun to decline from its Victorian glory. The ruling classes of the time were often seen as having grown complacent. They had become satisfied due to their decades of accumulating imperial wealth and power. So, the most important part that before concluding this series of lectures on the story, I feel the most important part to be covered is the character of Pharah. One character in this story who evades satirization is Vera. Because she herself is the vehicle for the story's satire. She carries the satire on her shoulders through her character as well as through the story that she cooks on both sides. She cooks a story for Frampton and she cooks a story for the Sappletons also. So her smartness can be compared to a kind of Shakespearean fools or tricksters who used to entertain by their small and petty lies, but they were also highlights of the plays. So she is an important character. She is like a classic trickster who even crosses boundaries because she's so young, she's just 15 years old, but she also crosses the boundaries of social decorum because she's lying. Belonging to a good family, to an affluent and respectable family, she is into the habit of lying. She has a penchant for telling tall tales, romance at short notice, just as Saki ends the story with. So, she is an interesting character, no doubt, but she can also be looked as a Shakespearean fool or a trickster throughout the story. So, this was a brief analysis of the various components of the story, The Open Window by H.H.Munro, Saki. Stay tuned for the next videos coming up very soon. Thank you for now.